All right, let's jump in. Imagine holding something ancient, maybe 5,000 years old, but realizing it holds secrets for modern tech, like fingerprinting.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's the kind of journey we're taking today, based on the sources you've given us.
It's a perfect example, really, of how looking back with modern tools can unlock completely unexpected possibilities. We're diving into the world of Egyptian blue.
Right.
Not just a color, but the very first synthetic pigment humans ever created.
Exactly. And the core of our deep dive today is this recent research paper. Scientists actually recreated this ancient color in the lab. They didn't just study old samples.
Right. Their whole mission was to use modern science to sort of peel back the layers.
Yeah.
To truly understand how the Egyptians made it and reveal those hidden stories locked inside the artifacts themselves.
So we'll cover its incredible history, then how this team brought it back to life, some truly surprising things they found about its makeup. I mean, some real aha moments from the sources. And then why this ancient blue is suddenly sparking interest for, well, tomorrow's technology.
Yeah.
Our goal here is really to pull out the absolute best nuggets from these sources about Egyptian blue's fascinating past, its present, and its potential future.
It's a journey, definitely. From deep antiquity right up to, like, cutting-edge applications today, all centered around this one single vibrant pigment.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. Way back, we're talking around 5,000 years ago, ancient Egypt. This wasn't just a color, it was the first synthetic one. Before this, if you wanted blue, you were pretty much limited to grinding up rare, expensive minerals.
And think about the value of that innovation. Natural blues from minerals like turquoise or lapis lazuli, incredibly precious, often imported from really far away.
Right, super expensive.
Yeah, so Egyptian blue offered a way to create a stable, vibrant blue locally. It acted as a much more accessible, yet still highly valued substitute for those minerals.
And they certainly used it. Our sources, they describe it being applied to all sorts of surfaces, wood carvings, stone temple walls. Oh, yeah.
And even cartonnage, that sort of papier-mâché stuff they used for things like sarcophagi and mummy masks.
It was visually everywhere in their world, really.
But what's fascinating, though, is that even though it was so common for thousands of years, the actual technique, the precise method for making it seems to have been largely forgotten by the Renaissance.
Yeah, it became a bit of a historical mystery, a lost recipe, essentially.
Which is incredible when you think about how widely it was used for so long. And looking at ancient objects today, you notice something. The color isn't always consistent, is it? You see everything from a beautiful deep blue to kind of dull grays, sometimes even greenish shades.
Absolutely. There was clearly a lot of variability in the final product.
And that variability, I gather, that was one of the key questions this new research really wanted to dig into.
Exactly. What exactly in the ancient process led to those different results? Why the inconsistency? So how did they go about answering that? I mean, the sources highlight the team behind this. It was a collaboration, right? Washington State University, Carnegie Museum of Natural History.
And the Smithsonian's Museum Conservation Institute. Yeah, a real combined effort.
Okay.
And their approach was pretty direct. Instead of just analyzing old samples, they decided to try and make it themselves, just like the ancient Egyptians might have.
Ah, okay. Hands-on history.
Totally.
Wow.
And their goal wasn't just academic, It was also to generate practical knowledge that could help archaeologists and conservation scientists better understand and preserve the actual artifacts they work with.
Right, so they basically became ancient chemists for a while.
Pretty much. They experimented with 12 different recipes using the ingredients the sources say the Egyptians likely had access to: silicon dioxide, copper, calcium, and sodium carbonate.
Which sounds fancy, but it's basically just sand.
Right, sand, a copper source like malachite, which they had, lime and soda ash, stuff that was readily available in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
So they mixed these in different proportions, but then came the really crucial step: the heat.
Right, the firing.
Exactly. They heated these mixtures up to around 1,000 degrees Celsius, which is a temperature they could actually achieve in ancient kilns.
Okay.
And they did it for different lengths of time, varying durations, from 1 hour all the way up to 11 hours.
Trying to cover all the bases of what might have happened back then.
Precisely. And after cooling, this is where modern science really stepped in to look under the hood, so to speak.
Okay.
They didn't just check the color by eye. They used advanced microscopy and analysis techniques. And what's really notable, according to the source, is that some of these specific techniques had never been used before to study Egyptian blue in this way.
Oh, interesting. So new tools on an old problem.
Exactly. Tools like high-resolution electron microscopes let them see the pigment's structure and composition at a level of detail that was just impossible before.
Wow.
And they could compare their recreated pigments directly to actual ancient samples from museum collections.
And one of the lead authors, John McCloy from WSU, he has this fascinating background materials, science, and anthropology.
Yeah, it seems perfect for this kind of work, right? Bridging cultures and chemistry.
Totally.
He's quoted hoping this project serves as a good case study for how scientific methods can bring new insights to understanding the human past.
Yeah, I like that quote.
And he also said something like, modern science reveals hidden stories in ancient Egyptian objects, which, I mean, that captures exactly what they did here.
It really does. He also mentioned apparently it started out just as something that was fun to do for a museum display.
Huh.
But the amount of interest the material has generated now was kind of unexpected for them.
That's often how it happens in science, isn't it? You follow the curiosity, and sometimes it leads somewhere surprising.
Definitely. And following that curiosity led them to some really surprising discoveries about the pigment's inner workings.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay, spill the secrets. What did they find that really stood out?
Well, the first thing that really struck them, looking at it microscopically, was just how inconsistent it is.
Inconsistent? How so?
They found the ancient pigment is highly heterogeneous. That basically means it's not uniform, not particle by particle. Every little speck of color has this varied mix of stuff inside.
Huh. So it's not like a modern paint pigment where every grain is pretty much identical.
Not at all. And this links right back to that variability we were talking about, the different shades you see in ancient artifacts.
Oh, okay.
McCloy notes that with just small differences in the process, you got very different results. So this messiness, this heterogeneity, helps explain why slightly different heating times, or maybe ingredient ratios or cooling rates, could result in very different shades of blue, or even gray or green.
Right. It suggests maybe ancient production wasn't perfectly standardized. Maybe different workshops did it slightly differently.
That's a strong possibility, yeah. Small variations in what seems like a messy process could lead to pretty big differences in the final outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. But you mentioned something even more counterintuitive they found.
Yes, this is the bit that they said was really quite surprising to the team.
Okay.
They found that to get the most intense, the purest blue color, you only need about 50% of the blue-colored components in the mixture.
Wait, only half the ingredients need to be the stuff that actually makes it blue. That seems completely backwards.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You'd instinctively think more blue stuff equals more blue color.
Right.
But McCloy is quoted saying it doesn't matter what the rest of it is,
Right.
basically, to get that vibrant blue. As long as you hit that roughly 50% threshold of the active blue-forming components.
So it's less about how much blue material is there overall, and more about getting the right conditions for the blue crystal structure to form properly, even if it's mixed in with a bunch of other non-blue stuff.
Precisely. It just reinforces that non-uniformity he mentioned. He said, you can see that every single pigment particle has a bunch of stuff in it. It's not uniform by any means. The intense blue seems to come from the formation of these specific crystalline structures within that messy mix.
That's genuinely wild. So an ancient pigment made with relatively simple, maybe somewhat inconsistent methods, turns out to have this really complex microscopic chemistry and structure with these non-intuitive rules for actually achieving the best color.
And it's that very complexity, that unique structure, that's making Egyptian blue interesting again today in ways completely outside of its historical context.
Ah, okay, here we go, the modern marvel part. So how does this 5,000-year-old color jump from, ancient tomb paintings to modern tech?
Well, it's because of a really unique property it has. It emits light in the near-infrared range of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Near-infrared, so light we can't actually see with our eyes.
Exactly. It's invisible to us.
Invisible light coming from a blue pigment. That's fascinating in itself. And that specific property has practical uses now.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because near-infrared light can penetrate certain materials and surfaces that visible light can't. So this makes Egyptian blue pigments incredibly useful for things like forensic fingerprint detection.
How does that work?
Well, you can dust a surface with a powder containing the pigment, shine an infrared light on it, and latent prints, ones that are invisible under normal light, they just pop right out when viewed with an infrared camera.
Oh, wow. Okay, I can see that being useful.
Yeah.
Or for creating advanced counterfeit-proof inks, maybe?
Exactly. That's another big application. You could print documents or currency that look perfectly normal to the eye,
Yeah.
but reveal hidden security patterns or marks only when you scan them with infrared light. Makes things much harder to fake.
Clever.
And the sources also note this intriguing connection. It shares some chemical similarities with certain high-temperature superconductors.
Really? Superconductor.
Yeah. Now, Egyptian blue isn't a superconductor itself, let's be clear. But understanding its structure and properties could potentially offer clues for research into other advanced materials like superconductors. It's a sort of chemical cousin.
That's fascinating. So zooming out a bit then, what does all of this mean for you, listening right now? Why should you care about a color pigment from thousands of years ago?
Well, I think because this research is just a perfect demonstration of how studying the materials and objects of the ancient world, using the most sophisticated modern scientific tools, it isn't just about historical curiosity, though that's cool too.
Right. It's not just for museums.
No. It's about revealing those hidden stories that McCoy talked about, uncovering unexpected properties, and sometimes, like with the infrared thing, finding practical applications that are relevant right now, today.
In fields as diverse as forensics, security, material science.
Exactly. Who knew an ancient blue paint held clues for catching criminals or developing new materials?
It's amazing. And if you find yourself in Pittsburgh, apparently you can actually see the intersection of this ancient history and modern science firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the sources say the samples the WSU team created during this research, they're currently on display at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, part of their new long-term Ancient Egypt gallery.
Oh, how cool is that? Seeing the modern scientific recreation right alongside the ancient artifacts that inspired it.
Yeah, must be quite something.
It really brings the whole story full circle, doesn't it? From, a prized color in antiquity, then lost to time for centuries, then revived through cutting-edge science, revealing surprising secrets about its own makeup, and now paving the way for potential future uses we're just starting to explore.
And it all came from digging deep into the sources you provided, looking closely at what the researchers actually did and found. It truly highlights the value of looking back with modern eyes and modern tools.
Absolutely.
And, well, that leaves us with a thought to consider, maybe for you listening. How many other materials or techniques or just forms of knowledge from the ancient world might hold secrets or practical applications for our modern world? Stuff just waiting to be rediscovered and analyzed with the tools and the curiosity we have today.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else is hidden in plain sight?